So yesterday night on this channel, we covered the developing story between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. If you want that full video, I'll post a link in the description. But the long story short is that yesterday CNN ran a story which suggested that Bernie Sanders told Elizabeth Warren a woman couldn't win the presidency in 2020. And a lot of other news sources jumped on this story and it swirled around the internet. But the fact is, millions of people, myself included, just didn't believe it. And the reason we didn't believe it is because it jars with Bernie Sanders' record, his worldview, what he says now, and what he's been saying for more than 20 years. The fact is, Bernie Sanders has been a longtime champion of feminism and of women's political equality. There's no doubting that. And so Bernie Sanders came out yesterday and released a statement, which basically said that what he told Warren was that while Donald Trump would weaponize sexism against her or any other woman candidate, it didn't mean that he felt a woman could not win. And he underlines the fact that Hillary Clinton defeated Donald Trump by more than 3 million votes, indicating that a woman could win. She could have won in 2016, and they certainly can win again in 2020. But the story didn't end there, because Warren doubled down on the original CNN piece, which was largely based on hearsay. The original CNN piece was run with sources that weren't even in the room. But Warren doubled down, and she said that in that private meeting between Sanders and Warren in December 2018, that Bernie did indeed say that a woman couldn't win. But I don't believe that. And noted last night, Bernie in the 1980s made it clear that a woman could win. Bernie Sanders, more than a generation ago, spoke to young girls and told them to aspire to be president. Bernie Sanders specifically encouraged Elizabeth Warren to run in the 2015-2016 Democratic primaries, and she chose not to. And basically, Bernie would have stood aside for her if she did run. And indeed, Bernie Sanders worked harder for Hillary Clinton than almost anyone else did, certainly harder than Clinton worked for Obama. And because of all of that, no one really believes this smear against Bernie Sanders. But the latest piece of evidence came out last night just after I published that video. And basically, from the Washington Post, there's another source corroborating what Bernie Sanders said in that private meeting. And I want to read you this clip. Two people with knowledge of the conversation at the 2018 dinner at Warren's home told the Washington Post that Warren brought up the issue by asking Sanders whether he believed a woman could win. One of the people with knowledge of the conversation said Sanders did not say a woman couldn't win, but rather that Donald Trump would use nefarious tactics against the Democratic nominee. That's all perfectly reasonable and true. Donald Trump has shown that he will attack anyone using any means as long as he feels it can give him power and wealth and prestige. He's done that as president. He did that in the general election. He did that to his fellow Republican challengers. He's done that in the world of business, and on and on and on and on. That's Donald Trump's MO, and it's been his MO for his entire adult life. That's who Donald Trump is. He will weaponize whatever he can to achieve his desired results, however immoral the action. Noting that is not saying a woman can't win or shouldn't run. Bernie Sanders was speaking to a close friend, a close colleague, a comrade, in confidence about how if a woman runs, she would face specific challenges. No one is denying that. Women candidates at every level of political office have noted that themselves, that they face different challenges than men do in politics. It's one of the barriers of women achieving high office in many countries, not just the United States. So for Bernie Sanders to acknowledge that fact, which is a historical and contemporary fact, in a private conversation to a friend, is in no way Bernie Sanders being sexist, saying a woman cannot win in 2020. Again, Bernie Sanders has been saying for a long time, since the 1980s at least, that a woman can be president. And Bernie was willing to step aside for Warren in 2015-2016 if she took up the mantle of the progressive left in challenging Hillary Clinton, and she did not. Bernie Sanders, again, campaigned for Hillary Clinton. And so all of this, from my perspective, doesn't just show this to be a miscommunication. I honestly felt that you could be charitable to Warren, maybe a little bit, and say that this was a miscommunication. But now I really do think Warren and her campaign are out and out lying. They're lying about what Bernie Sanders said. They're lying because they're desperate. They're lying because they know their fundraising is falling. Their flip-flop move on Medicare for All lost them progressive voters. People are realizing that this is going to be a two-horse race between Bernie and Biden, and people like Warren and Buttigieg are gradually being left at the wayside. And so she's trying to get back some of those progressive voters by attacking Bernie Sanders and painting him as a sexist. It's not going to work because of Bernie's record, because we have receipts of his past statements, and because sources like the Washington Post, which again are in no way Bernie-friendly sources, are corroborating his general remark. Again, Bernie didn't say a woman couldn't win. Bernie said that sexism would be weaponized against her. That's 100% true. But the thing is that if Warren becomes the nominee, Bernie Sanders would be among her greatest defenders. And Bernie would note the sexism she faces, and he would help her in challenging that. He would be an ally, a comrade standing by her side, knowing that the media, that the public, that their opponents will not treat women the same as they do men. And Bernie would fight harder for a woman, I feel, because he knows the disadvantages that she faces historically and today. That's because Bernie Sanders is a rock-solid champion of women's equality and feminism. He's always been, and he always will be. And so Warren, she needs to apologize here. She needs to make it clear, perhaps on the debate stage tonight in Iowa, that Bernie Sanders suggested that Donald Trump would weaponize sexism, but not that Bernie Sanders suggested a woman couldn't win. If she apologizes, maybe there's a chance that progressives can move forward in a cooperative manner. But I don't think that's going to happen, guys. I don't think she's going to apologize. I think that this is going to be the Warren party line, that Bernie Sanders said a woman couldn't win. And they feel that it benefits them. But it won't. It won't benefit them. The hashtag refund Warren movement is going on Twitter right now as people are demanding refunds from Elizabeth Warren for this unsavory attack on Bernie Sanders. This could end Elizabeth Warren. And guys, it might be a just thing if it does, because Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have demonstrated the value of working together. But in Warren attacking Bernie Sanders in this moment, first through anonymous sources and then through a lying statement, has demonstrated that at the end of the day, she would rather smear Bernie to help Biden win than unite progressives around a candidate that can truly transform the country, whether it's her or whether it's Bernie Sanders.